I'm the picture of the little phone over there, by the way. I don't have my video on.
But that's quite all right, Shelley.
I was hoping, I just wanted to eat my breakfast in private.
We're all set to go.
Okay.
Okay, this meeting will come to order. This is James Healy, the temporary chair of the West Hartford Board of Assessors, and I'd like to welcome you to the virtual April 14th, 2022 meeting of the board. Because in-person attendance at public meetings is likely to increase the risk of transmission of COVID-19, this hearing is being conducted virtually in accordance with Governor Lamont's public health emergency and civil preparedness orders. Board members and some town staff are participating by WebEx. The public can watch this meeting on Comcast Channel 5, Frontier TV channels 6098, or on www.whctv.org. Because of the virtual format, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before we begin. First, I ask all participants to mute your devices when you are not speaking. If you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand and I will call on you. If you are participating via audio only, or I do not call on you and the debate is ending, then please unmute your phone and let me know so I can recognize you. Second, pursuant to Executive Order 7B, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak. Third, because of the difficulty in tallying voice votes on a video conference, I will require that votes be taken by roll. I will now call the roll. Let's see. All right. I see Lance in.
Present.
Okay. I know Shelley is on.
Yeah,
And Joe, I know you said we had some new members. I'm not sure
Yes.
I see the names here. I may ask for your help. Roberta. Roberta, you're muted, so I think technically we just didn't hear you.
Roberta Warreno.
Nice to meet you, Roberta.
Nice to meet you.
And is Philip the other new member, or?
Philip is a observer today.
Okay.
He has not been yet fully approved by the council. They'll do that at next month's meeting.
Well, Philip, nice to meet you as well. All right, so I guess we have the roll. I believe the next matter is the minutes of the March 10, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I move to approve the minutes. Shelley Roseanne moves to approve the minutes.
All right, I think we had a motion and a second. Do the minutes have to be taken by individual vote as well, Joe?
You can do it by acclamation. If everyone agrees with it, it doesn't have to be individually.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roseanne, aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. The next item is the minutes of the March 23rd, 2022 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
Shelley Roseanne, second.
Thank you, Shelley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries as well. And I see on the list, our third item is Hebrew Home and Hospital, a personal property application. Am I right about that, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that the matter remind me that we had passed, waiting for some input from the Corporation Counsel's office?
That is correct. And I have sent each one of you early this morning a copy of that feedback from Corp Counsel. I would ask, however, that you would ignore the first paragraph because it really was not germane to the application. The applicant was filing under 12-81 subsection 7 and not 12. However, the balance of the review from the Corporation Council is germane to the request. And I have also, as late as yesterday, received from their CFO a copy of their state license from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, certifying them as a hospital for mentally ill persons. So they do have a certification. They have a sort of a sorted past, not in a bad sense. There was a bankruptcy at one point in time, and they were kind of navigating through that. They shelved or asked the state to withdraw their chronic hospital certification. With a chronic hospital certification under Connecticut General Statute 12-20A, there is a pilot payment that the state pays to municipalities in lieu of direct taxes on the entity. So when they gave up that certification, they now have to reapply under this behavioral health license that they have from the state of Connecticut. So I think our corporation counsel, assistant corporation counsel, has concluded that Connecticut General Statute 12-81, subsection 16. I'm going to share that on my screen because I didn't give that to you. And I pray that you can see it. Let's see. David, all I have to do is click on it. Is that correct?
That's right. You should just be able. Oh, yep. Here it's coming up. There
All
we
right.
go. Perfect.
All right. I have two more. Is everyone able to see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the
Right.
app.
Got it now.
Okay, that is the applicable statute that the Assistant Corporation Counsel highlighted and believes that it is germane to the request of the applicant. I do not disagree, particularly with the certification from the State of Connecticut Department of Public Health with their license for a mental health facility.
Joe, may I ask some questions?
Of course.
So when you are licensed as a mental health facility, how much of the facility is supposed to be dedicated to mental health? If any, are there any kind of triggers or particular levels that qualify you? Meaning, if you do more than mental health, you do mental health and you do something else.
Well, there is, I think most of you could appreciate that I've given you a substantial amount of material pertaining to this applicant's request. And there is more that goes into a bullet list of services that this type of facility has to provide. I did not give that to you. It's on the state of Connecticut website, Department of Public Health. It's a 38-bed facility there. They are not occupying that entire building. And Shelley, if I didn't address all your questions, just come back at me because I didn't hear everything you said clearly. But it's a 38-bed facility. The balance of that building is operated by a for-profit entity. They run a skilled nursing facility. They're totally separated from the Hebrew home and hospital. Did I respond to your question?
Yes.
That makes sense to me. And, I think based on the feedback from Corporation Counsel, that's what we had kind of waited on last time, and it sounds like they've answered the question that it does apply. That was my read of. I know we don't want to get too detailed into the legal advice because there is a privilege there, but you know, I think they've helped answer the essential question. Was my sense of it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, of course, the last meeting we didn't have some of the additional information that we now have in possession. Now, I do have one hiccup here. We have a copy of their certificate of incorporation. And when you look at the certificate of incorporation, and I asked the CFO about that yesterday, and there are two things here. Number one, under the purposes indicate that they are a chronic disease hospital. And that they just, let me just get this up so I can tell you verbatim. I don't want to. Yes, that they provide that they are a chronic disease hospital, outpatient clinics, nursing homes, and rehab health facilities. They are no longer a chronic disease hospital, nor are they a nursing home, but they are a behavioral health facility. So I asked the CFO for a signed copy, and he sent me one yesterday, perhaps in haste, and didn't realize he gave me a duplicate of what we already have. So this is not an updated certificate of corporation, and nor is it signed. So I don't know how the board feels about that, but I thought it was necessary to bring this to your attention.
I have a question. And I'm going to just ask this in general, but is there a requirement that the articles of incorporation have to be updated under Connecticut law with regard to purpose and function?
Well, I can't speak through you, Mr. Chair. I can't speak to that, Lance, from a legal standpoint. I can only anecdotally say that when we get these requests and we ask for these specific documents, one of these foundational documents, one of the things we look at is the purpose of the organization. And we try to dovetail that with the statute that they're aligning themselves with for the exemption. I don't know whether or not there is a signature requirement on that. So I cannot answer that question. I can only say that the document that I do have has a signature line on there, and it was never signed off on. So I don't know what that means.
Joe, I have another question.
Yes.
As a practical matter, when you said, 38 beds and the balance for profit, physically, how is that bifurcated? And I have not been there in many, many years.
To you, Mr. Chair, that's a good question, Shelley. I actually have their lease here. There's a demarcated area of the building, and I think essentially, if my memory serves me, they're occupying about 20% of the entire building. If I can just put my hands on this lease here. And the out-of-state entity that owns the property and operates the skilled nursing facility, they have some very customized language that allows the behavioral health hospital to use certain areas of the facility during certain periods of time. So they just don't have a free run of the building. If my memory serves me, Shelley, I think it's about 20% of the property. And I just have too much material here. Let's see here.
And in terms of cross functionality, you know me, Joe. I always I like the formalities, but I want to know what's happening on the ground. Bobby probably remembers that about me too. So in terms of cross functionality, are the users of behavioral health the same users as those in the, hospital, nursing home, or is it a separate, are they separate users?
Well, according to their documents, there seems to be a shortage of these type facilities in the state of Connecticut. And so consequently, that spurred them to divorce themselves from their previous chronic hospital certification. That was, I think, I'm reading between the lines here in their material, was part of their downfall towards the foreclosure. The behavioral health unit is separate. It has nothing to do with them. A lot of the folks that are in there come from hospitals, emergency rooms that just don't have the ability to help these people. Some of them come from assisted living environments because they have different types of issues, dementia, and I'm really going off my memory here. Oh, here we go. They treat chronic psychiatric issues, bipolar disorder, delusional disorder, Alzheimer's disease, depression, schizophrenia, and paranoid disorder. Now, the skilled nursing facility, whether or not these folks who are treated in the behavioral health hospital, whether or not they migrate over to the skilled nursing facility, I don't recall that being covered with the CFO when we had him at the last meeting. So I can't honestly answer that. But I can tell you that that facility is taxable on the West Hartford assessment records, along with their business personal property. I think there's about $11 million value on the building. So they're taxable. And this is an entity that is, they may have about 100 and, while we walk through this meeting, I'll see if I can find the square footage of the leased area. But I know it's about 100, maybe 116,000 square feet. Sure. So that's all I can tell you about that.
Okay, separate employees?
Yes, separate employees.
Okay.
They have their own nurses. They have geriatric physicians and admin staff. And we'll get into that when we start talking about the other entity, the Hebrew Community Services, LLC. Aside from that, and the point that I brought out and the question that was raised by Lance, I can't again attest to the legality of the whether or not there has to be a signature.
Well, I'll just follow if I can. That's a concern for me certainly, but again, the other question as to whether again all businesses change over time, at some point. But my question goes to whether there's a requirement under state law to modify your articles of incorporation to reflect your current status, or is the current articles of incorporation broad enough to cover their new the new functions?
That's a good question. I unfortunately do not have the answer for that. I would have to defer to our corporation counsel to give you feedback on that question. And I don't want to be a stick in the mud about this, but as the legwork person for this board, I thought it was necessary to bring that to your attention. Again, we always look at these foundational documents when these requests come before us. So it wasn't until yesterday afternoon when I read the certificate of incorporation again, and after speaking with their CFO on the phone, asking him for the updated document, that he gave me the same document. So does it have to be updated? I can't tell you. I can say this, that I have this particular document says it's amended and restated, and I'm going to have to educate myself on what those reasons are that precipitate this kind of action.
So there's no date on the document?
No, there's no date on the document.
Okay, because I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe there's any state requirement to revise your article, your certificate.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't be 100% sure after bankruptcy, but I don't believe that's the case.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm supposed to speak or not, but sorry.
Yes, you are, Roberta.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, is this something we're prepared to vote on? Lance, would you like us to pass this one more time and get clarity on that question to be comfortable to take a vote on it? I mean,
I think that after review of the signature, the missing signature, as well as not having a date, as well as the question as to there's a requirement to amend. And again, I'm not sure about that question, but I want to be absolutely sure. I think it's wise to hold over until we aim to have those questions answered.
that's fine with me. Anyone else have feelings either? I don't know that we need to vote on anything if we do pass it, but you know, anyone else have thoughts on this? All right, I guess Joe, we'll hold this over one more time and get some clarity on the on that certificate, and then hopefully be in a position to take action on it next time around. Does that make sense?
So through you, Mr. Chair. So is there a motion to table this until our next meeting pending feedback from Corporation Counsel?
There we go. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that tables. And item 4, Joe, is the Hebrew Community Services. Is that the counterpart to this organization?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And do you want to take us through the high points there, Joe, from where you sit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So this is another one that was reviewed by the board the last time around, and essentially they make provision for assisted living and a senior daycare. They're seeking the an exemption on their personal property. The personal property has an assessment of about $26,980 for the 2021 grand list. Their annual revenue, based upon their most recent IRC 990, was about $1.5 million. And they're formed exclusively for the benefit of frail and disabled elderly persons and their families. And of course, they have the 501c3 certification from the Department of Treasury, exempting them from federal income taxes. I have a couple of issues with this, and we have another daycare, adult daycare in town, and it's called the Juniper Adult Daycare. They're located at 1068 New Britain Avenue. And when you look at the tier of services that they provide, they're almost in lockstep, literally, with what the Hebrew Community Services does in terms of providing door-to-door wheelchair capable transportation, daily exercise classes, daily breakfast, hot lunch, snacks, shopping trips, etc. And the Juniper Adult Daycare Center does those same things. And so I'm concerned that oftentimes when an organization receives a certification from the IRS or the Internal Revenue Code of a 501c3, as you know now, it doesn't automatically cascade down to the state and municipal levels. However, we do look at that as a threshold before going further with our review. If they don't have a 501c3, it's highly unlikely we would look at the request with a jaundiced eye. But having said that, they provide services to an assisted living organization who's one of the related entities on Simsbury Road here in West Hartford. And just maybe that's the Hebrew Life Choices, Hoffman Summerwood. So basically, now Hebrew Life Choices Hoffman Summerwood is a 501c3 organization. They are taxable on their real estate and their business personal property. But they provide services to the residents of the Hoffman. This is not Medicare or Medicaid. This is all private pay. If they want to utilize the Hartford Community, Hebrew Community Services Incorporated. So, and I think Shelley touched on this when she wanted to know about the for-profit entity at Hebrew Home and Hospital, where Hebrew Home and Hospital is located, and whether there's some kind of cross-pollination going on there. But I have concerns about, if this guy is, or this organization meets your approval for an exemption, then I certainly could see Juniper Adult Daycare at some point in the future seeking an exemption as well. Now, in the case of Juniper, they not only own personal property, they own real estate. And certainly, I don't want to suggest that any one of them is not entitled to an exemption if they meet the criteria. But I just want to make sure that when we look at these, there's some balance. So that's all I have in terms of the high points. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer all of your questions.
Yeah, Joe, under what section are they applying for the exemption, and are you able to post that up on your screen?
Yes, they're seeking the exemption under 12-81 subsection 7. Let me see if I can get that for you very quickly.
Thank you. Then I'm going to follow it up with my usual type of question. When we were talking about the cross-pollination, I like that phrase that you used. Do we know to what extent that cross-pollination exists? In other words, is it a large percentage of the pollination?
A good question. Relatively speaking, when I look at the Hebrew Hospital versus them, this is a much smaller organization. When I look at their revenue, and I look at the allocation of where their revenue goes, 68% goes to salaries, 21% towards rent, and 11% towards the other expenses of the organization. Now, let me just get this up on the screen for you very quickly. See if I can do this without too much delay. All right, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. While you're looking at that, I'm going
It
to.
doesn't only take me a minute for it to populate. My computer is deciding whether you're safe. There it is.
Okay.
And we're talking about charitable purposes here. This is 7 or 8. Hold on.
Yes, charitable purposes.
Section. Okay.
I will say that in my conversation with the CFO yesterday, he pointed out that this is kind of a gateway to familiarize residents with their services under the Hebrew healthcare system, if you will. Yeah, you know, can a nonprofit do this? I don't see anything that would preclude them from doing this. But here again, this is the scale of information or scope of information that I have been able to get from the organization. And my only concern, again, is that we do have another senior daycare in town, but they may not be have a certification from the Department of Treasury in terms of a 501c3. That could be a distinct difference between these two entities, albeit they provide very similar services.
In 7A, do we hit the exclusively threshold?
Pardon me?
So
Say that again?
7A, I'm saying it's organized exclusively for, but it also says and used exclusively for carrying out one or more. So the organization is one level, and then the actual, is this exclusively used for charitable? Because there's organized exclusively and used exclusively.
I don't see anything that would suggest that they're not doing it exclusively or organized exclusively. You know, when I look at the again, going back to their foundational document, when I look at purposes, they essentially say exclusively for the benefit of frail and disabled elderly persons and their families. By providing a single integrated point of access to healthcare and support systems. And I would probably by extension assume that would also include the Hartford Hebrew Home and Hospital, along with some of the other services that they provide, and the Hoffman entity. So to provide the appropriate service at the appropriate level and time. You know, this is a lot of generalities. In my view, I don't have anything that would suggest that they're not doing this exclusively for the purposes outlined in their application. All right, do you want me to, you guys need to see the screen any longer?
No.
All
No,
right.
good.
So they're organized to serve the adult day, for adult daycare services in West Hartford. And as you can see from the assessment, they have, and of course, this should not be a litmus test to whether or not they get an exemption, but they have, they don't have much business personal property.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else have any other questions or any other thoughts on this one?
I had a brief question. And so from the last comment made, I want to be clear about this. Is the question whether the organization have to have an exclusive purpose, or is that the question that's at hand, I believe?
That was my question at the end.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, the 1281.7, and as Shelley pointed out, Lance, essentially says, subject to 1287 and 88, the real property of or held in trust for a corporation organized exclusively for charitable, for scientific, educational, literary, historical, or charitable purposes, or for two or more of such purposes, and used exclusively for carrying out one or more of such purposes, or for the purpose of blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, exclusivity is an issue.
And are the facts that this organization is not exclusive to this purpose?
No, sir, I don't have anything within the documents rendered, and I did scour whatever public information I could, and I did task the CFO on this yesterday as well, because I had some concerns about it, and I did mention it. I did mention the Juniper Adult Daycare Center to him as well. I didn't want to be coy about it, to express my concerns. But there's nothing that came out of that suggested that what they were doing over there is not exclusively for charitable purposes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, if not, would someone like to make a motion?
I so move.
All right, Lance, that's a motion to approve, I gather. Is there a second?
Bobby Warno, I second.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, so motion carries with 3 in favor and 1 abstention. And we move, I think, Joe, to item 5 is the West Hartford Women's Chorale Corporation.
Yes, sir. Just make my quick notes here.
Sure thing.
Some of you may remember from times past, we used to have an administrative support person at our meetings, and I don't have that luxury now, so I try to get all the stuff at the same time here. All right, so. All right, we discussed this the last time but this was one of the items that were tabled. This is an organization that that is a group of singers who does choral music and puts on things, shows for churches and other organizations throughout the town. They're a very small organization. You can see from their application, I think their gross income was about $16,000, $17,000 approximately for the year in question. They don't really have personal property per se. They opted to buy two 6-foot risers that these folks usually stand on. It's tiered when they're at a concert that they're putting on. It is an adult women's choir. They hold 2 major concerts annually and community performances throughout the year. They received a grant from us, the town of West Hartford, in 2019 that enabled them to purchase the I call them bleachers, but these 6-foot risers that they have. I don't see anything in their application that would give me pause to question whether or not they were a charitable organization under 1281(7). That's what they're applying for the exemption under.
All right, thank you, Joe. Anyone have questions or other feedback on this one? All right, if not, if someone has a motion to make, we can entertain the application.
I move that we approve the application. Roberta Warno.
Thank you, Bobby. Do we have a second?
Second.
Kelly Roseanne, second.
Oh, sorry, she's first.
Thank you both. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good. That carries and brings us to, if I'm reading this right, Joe, the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents.
Yes, sir.
And had this been on maybe a meeting agenda item we didn't get to before? It does.
Yes, it was on our last meeting item that was tabled because we really consumed a considerable amount of time with the CFO from the Hebrew Hospital, and we were unable to get to a lot of the other agenda items. All right, here we go. So by way of background, the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents were approved for an exemption by the Board of Assessors back in 1991 on their business personal property. At the time, they were leasing space from the town of West Hartford at the Smith School. They did not own any real property or motor vehicles at the time. They subsequently acquired 26 Caya Avenue on the 12th of January, 1994. And from our file, a renewal application was submitted on December 20th of 2001. Of course, that would have been late. The applications are due November 1st, unless they had applied for an extension from the filing due date, which would give them 60 days in order to get that information in. but there was no information in the file that a request for an extension was put in. Furthermore, in looking at the town's records, this property has been on the tax rolls since 1999 as taxable. So they've been paying taxes on the real estate since 1999. I can only conclude one of two things: that they did not pursue a subsequent filing of the request for an exemption on the property, or it was denied by the Board of Assessors. I don't have any evidence either way. It's just supposition based upon the events that I am aware of. They have a personal property assessment in the amount of $55,270, and the real property assessment is $417,060. They've actually done a lot of work on that property over the years. They put an addition on there and so forth. So this entity sort of reminds me of the Connecticut Association of Assessing Officers, which is a professional association that Connecticut assessors are members of. There are associate members who sometimes are attorneys in private practice with real estate law and dealing with taxes and others. There is a membership fee that we have to pay to the association. And throughout the year, they put on a variety of different educational workshops where we can secure continuing education credits. There's a major event in the spring. In fact, it'll be next month at the AquaTurf, I think, where they would appoint the new officers to lead the association for the next couple of years. I'm a little long in the tooth. I don't remember all the details. I don't go as much anymore. In my earlier years in the association, I participated quite a lot. But this organization, to me, resembles the Connecticut Association of Assessing Officers in terms of what they do. And this organization essentially is doing this for the teachers. I'm not sure if you got a chance to do this, but their mission is to enhance public education by conducting instructional programs for public school educators and administrators for the purpose of improving their capabilities and thereby improving the education of public school students. That is, I just thought I had a list of the some of the other. There's a lot of seminars that they put on here in the state, and I thought that was a listing within the. Yeah, here it is. There are regional and national conferences attended by the executive director and officers of the board. The board of directors and committees meet monthly to keep apprised of and deliberate on legislative issues and activities in conjunction with the State Department of Education in an effort to improve public education. And professional development and assistance is also conducted through many small 25 to 35 attendance group meetings.
question for you.
Yes.
Is this similar? So, for example, you know, in the legal profession, it's like continuing legal ed, you know, mandatory continuing legal ed, or, you know, in EMS, it's, you know, mandatory continuing education, or is this kind of, you know, is this something, you know, legislative purposes? Is this, you know, political, or I'm not sure what this organization is doing. Like, I don't know if it's, you know, like the Bar Association, or, you know, what is this organization?
That's a good question. I could only, again, in comparison to the Connecticut Association of Assessing Officers, we have a mandate in order to maintain our certifications that we have to take, I think it's 50 class hours of training every 5 years. Otherwise, you will forfeit your certification. And if you forfeit your certification, then you're unable to sign a grand list annually. Whoever signs that grand list has to be certified. So there's a requirement on us. Shelley, I think you've asked a very good question. I don't know if there's any mandates on the.
And then is this coursework paid for? So continuing legal ed, you know, we, for the most part, have to pay for that. You know, for EMS, it has to be paid for, even though it's paid for example, by particular ambulance services. But those companies, you know, do really well. And then, you know, and then I guess the other thing is that these days, at least, most continuing ed that I've found is no longer done in person. It's done remotely. So, you know, my next step in the question is, you know, the necessity of, you know, providing certain spaces depending on what their specific purpose is. And Joe, you know, I always sort of go on, like, you know, that sort of initial gut instinct, and my initial gut instinct is, what exactly do you do? So that's sort of, that's leading me down a series of questions.
I think that's, to you, Mr. Chair, I think that's a very good question and focus. And I certainly can go back to, although I haven't had an opportunity to talk to anyone within this organization. They've given us a lot of documentation, but if the board has questions that they want a response to before proceeding on their application, I will be happy to get the additional information from the applicant. And so
I know my tenure on the board is ending, Joe. But you know, if I were to remain on the board, so I'm looking at, you know, I'm looking at their website right now, and I'm still kind of like, okay, their purpose, like, to address inequities in education. I'm like, okay, well, what do you do? So member support, contract consultation, they do, and they also have, so that's under one section, and then they have professional learning for superintendents, blueprint to transform Connecticut's public schools. I'm sort of not necessarily just in looking at that, and that's why I was asking a lot of questions. I'm sort of like, well, what exactly is this thing? They have partner programs and things like that. So I'm feeling like, just based on their website alone, I'm kind of like, well, what is this here? Let me click on Meet Our Partners and what that means. our partners introduce a wide variety of products and services. I'm not sure what they are. It sounds like they're a conduit for something.
Okay. I think your point is well taken, and I certainly can glean more information from them on that point. I don't think they would be reluctant to give us any information that you request. And I can have that by our next meeting.
Joe, I have a question. Are they a 501c3 corporation, or are they a different type of entity?
Yes, they do have the,
So they're claiming to be a nonprofit.
they gave me a Bible here of material.
Mhm.
Let's see here.
I know, Joe, just sort of as while you're looking at that, as kind of an outgoing board member, I think, one of the things that it seems like a lot more, it's actually a lot more years than it seems like, but one of the things that, that I'm always pushing for is to dig down, because if you have a good lawyer, you could file for anything and characterize things as anything and word things really well, no matter what you want to do. It does not necessarily jive with realities on the ground. And I think that's been kind of a continuing theme over the years. And so, for the benefit of the new board members, just kind of putting out there that, that what we file and what we say is not necessarily always what is actually occurring. And, all you need is a smart person to put some good words together to make things look different from what they really are.
I don't
Like I'm looking at, consulting contracts. I don't know what that means. Doesn't sound very charitable to me. But so I just think there are questions out there.
All right. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Roberta, I have, and this was not in the distribution that you received. My apologies to that, but I found their old folder, which gave me the background on their exemption in the early 90s. But there is a letter from the Department of Treasury dated 11/16/1973. And it says, gentlemen, we have reviewed your activities and examined your financial records for the above years and find that your federal tax exempt status continues. Your returns for the years indicated are accepted as filed. So I don't know this. I quite frankly, this is different than the certifications that I see with all of the other ones. This is specifically addressing a 990 that they filed. And so perhaps that could be another ask from the organization in terms of their any certifications that they might have from the Department of Treasury.
And do we have their current 990, or do we not review those?
Yes, we do have the current 990. I did give you folks a copy of that information in your package. I'm not sure, Roberta, if you got that or not.
No, I don't think I did. I'm sorry.
All right. I think I didn't want to frighten you away, Roberta, with all this material. But I will gladly send you the 990. I have it in hand here. It's the 2019.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Where do we stand on political advocacy? Because they talk about their advocacy services, their legislative advocacy.
Well, again, the only thing I would have to flush that out. I can talk anecdotally about that because my organization oftentimes reviews legislation that is proposed or pending concerning ad valorem property taxes. And we have a legislative arm within the association that sometimes attends a hearing in the legislature that speaks to the legislation that's being considered. By the way, the CWO they have a 501c6, not a C3, and I understand that that makes you ineligible for getting any, if you make any contributions to them, you can't deduct them off your federal income taxes. And they are also taxable. They have a couple of laptops. They don't own any property. I think the current secretary has that. So, so I don't know if that legislative component involvement made them ineligible for a 501c3. I would have to investigate that.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of throw that out there. I may come just to listen to you guys as the public for the next meeting. To see how it goes.
Well, since while you still have the floor, I would hope that you would stay around until we get our buoyancy with our new members.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I know. I remember I volunteered for a continued term for as long as you need me. So you just keep letting me know.
Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. And I defer back to the chair.
I almost feel like an old timer on this board at this point. When I started, it was just, it's like the whole composition has changed. It's funny.
All right, well, very good. Shelley, thanks, and Roberta, thank you for the questions. I think we have some good feedback we can get, and hopefully have some more clarity for how to handle this next time around. And hopefully our regular chair is back next time around. I certainly hope so. But I don't think we have anything else on the agenda today, Joe.
Would you like to present a motion to table this particular?
I'm sorry. Yes, we do need a motion to table. If someone would be willing to make that motion, we can keep the process moving here.
So I would like to make a motion to table the CAPS Education Foundation application for exemption.
Thank you, Shelley. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's tabled, and I believe we're set to adjourn unless anyone else has anything else for us.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate
Thank you all. Take care.
All right. Thank you, James. Appreciate you stepping in.
No problem. Take care all.